Hey everyone, welcome back to Working Knowledge. I'm Chitika.
And I'm Selena.
This is episode 4. It's called Minor Questions, and today we're going to talk to each other about our minors that we just completed in college. And we're going to ask a few questions and just try to learn something new today. So, Selena, really quickly, do you want to review for the audience what your minor was and just tell us a little bit about how you got there?
Or I feel like I'm being asked an interview question.
That was not my intention.
No, it's fine. Yeah, my minor, which you guys might have already heard from some of our other episodes, I got a minor in human-computer interaction. And yeah, it was a pretty random thing, but I think it's been really influential on what I've done. So for context, human-computer interaction, let me look up the official definition for this. Oh my gosh. I probably should have prepared that ahead of time. Human-computer interaction studies the design and use of computer technology focused on the interfaces between people, which are users, and computers. That's what Wikipedia says. So yeah, a lot of human-computer interaction things include UI UX design or graphic design, branding design. It goes all the way up until AI interface design and prototyping for all these kinds of evaluative methods and stuff like that. So it's a pretty wide range of stuff. A lot of it is, at least at Carnegie Mellon, it's they teach a lot about the design method and refinement and iteration, which is really interesting when approaching it from a different perspective than architecture, because us in architecture, we learn our own iterative and whatever. That's, I would say, what HCI is. Yeah, but
Nice.
for me,
That's super interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting minor. It's also a very popular minor for us.
So
yeah.
I hear.
It's actually well, it's not required, but computer science majors at Carnegie Mellon, they're required to do a minor, and HCI is a really common one. And I think a lot of design majors also do a HCI minor because it's really related to their work of study. But yeah, what about your minors? Multiple.
Oh yeah, you said minors, and I was like, "What? I have two." I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
I minored in professional writing and architectural history. So the second is pretty self-explanatory, I guess. There's history, and then there's some requirements that we all had to do as architecture majors, and we had to take 3 classes in architectural history. 2 of which were predetermined, and then the third was whatever you wanted. So we studied a fairly broad range of everyone does that. What was the first one? The survey class, which is quick overview.
Gosh, mostly just Western architecture, but I don't know what the official name of it was.
I hope Diane never listens to this. So yeah, that was this big overview, and then we did modern architecture. So everyone does that, but you have to take 4 extra classes to do the minor. So it's just you just end up taking a lot of history classes, and then if you take enough, you get the minor. So it's pretty cool. Usually they're very small, but that was just I was interested, and I was I like history, and it was my first A in college was for the survey class.
Oh really?
Yeah,
that's fun.
So.
I remember a lot of people struggled in that class.
Yeah, well, we can come to the stories later, but
Yeah.
I have a pretty funny story from that first midterm and my conversation with the professor after. And then the other one was professional writing. So that also, there's some good stories about how I ended up doing those two, but professional writing is I also didn't really understand the sort of distinction, you can understand
creative
versus non-creative, which is fiction versus
non-fiction.
Well, sort of. Yeah, I guess there's whatever. I'm gonna end up hurting myself by trying to be too correct, but you know, people understand that there's like creative writing and then there's like other kinds of writing, but I didn't realize that there were sort of like multiple subdivisions within that like other side as well. So there's professional and technical writing, and you can minor in like both of them separately. I think, yeah. So I minored in professional writing, but technical writing is like science writing. Like if you write for an academic journal or like a medical journal, that's technical writing. And no offense to technical writers, but it's so boring.
Yeah. Don't you write like like not you, but like if you're a technical writer, don't you write like manuals and like that kind of stuff too? Because I remember someone mentioned that.
A couple of the classes there were overlaps. Like the intro class is the same for professional and technical writing. So we had to do like instructions or like we had to make a manual. And I was just like, I never want to do this again. Because it's all like, you know, actually it's funny because you know, like HCI is like so much, or like a big part is UX, UI, and like you do a lot of that. So in a weird way, it's sort of like written UX, right? Because you have to think about like, how is this person going to use this product? And like, what do we have to say in here so that we don't get sued? Like, that's kind of a big part of it. But anyway, professional writing is like, you know, if you wrote like an like a op-ed, like an opinion editorial, or you wrote like articles or like journal thingies, but not like science medical stuff where like
so it's kind of like journalism-ish esque, more so than like fiction or book writing, that kind of thing.
Right, yeah. Or like argumentative essays, things like that. So a lot of it was, we also spent a little bit of time writing like personal professional documents, like cover letters, things like that. Like advertising is sort of like in that realm in a big way. So it's pretty interesting. I think I learned a lot about like, you know, like what people end up doing when they like major in writing. There's sort of so many directions to take that. Because in my head it was always like if you like studied writing, you like write a murder mystery and then like live in a gorgeous hut in the woods or something like that. But yeah, there's more ways to do writing apparently. So yeah. Those were mine.
Exciting. Well, I commend you on doing 2, because 1 was hard enough for me. Well, not hard enough, but like it took a lot more effort, I guess, than I expected. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in a way the name is misleading because it's like a minor, so it feels like it's like a small thing like slapped on to the end of your major, which, you know, I'm very thankful to CMU for like making we graduated, all kinds of great things and experiences, but I'm so salty that we don't get any like acknowledgement of the minor on our diplomas or anywhere. Yeah. It's like not a thing.
It upsets me too.
Yeah, especially because at first I thought like, oh, it's gonna end up on your degree, so it like does like a little mean something
under, but it doesn't. Yeah. So all you really get from it basically is like a an acknowledgement on your resume or on your transcript if like companies will look at that, but there's no like proof of it anywhere.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, not that if you say you minored in something, people are probably gonna believe you, and like if they really want to, they can check with your, you know, department because you still have it like officially declared. But it's just one of those, like, I know somebody who, I was telling you this the other day, like, people get their, like, they get whole separate pieces of paper for their minor. And I'm like, we weren't even asking for a whole piece of paper. All I wanted was a little line that said minored in so-and-so, and I would have been ecstatic. And it just,
I feel
like,
you.
It really frustrated me. It's such a big diploma, and it has so much space on it. I don't understand any, like, I don't think there's any reasonable argument for it not having 5 extra words on there.
Yeah. Carnegie Mellon, like, diploma cases are, like, ginormous. They're, like, they're probably, like, 18 inches by 12 or so.
Yeah. At least. Maybe.
At least. Yeah.
Probably
and
more.
It's, like, way too big to fit in, like, a suitcase. It's, like, too big to do anything with. So, right now,
like, you can't just put it in your backpack and just take it on the plane. That's just an odd thing.
Yeah. So, they could have maybe put some extra words on there, in my opinion.
I agree.
But, yeah. When did you decide? So, I guess we can go into the stories then. When did you decide to do, like, your minor? Because I don't even know when you did. I just remember, like, at some point you're like, oh, I'm going to do a history or whatever minor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, The history one was like sort of on my mind because, you know, partially because like I did well in the class, and then I was like, oh, I'm like excited about this, and I think there's a little bit of like, it depends. It's different from school to school, but like at our school, we have a very small like history department, and like in CMU and at CMU in general, right? Like the humanities are like so sort of like sidelined. So I feel like anytime someone displays any like interest or ability in that like area, the professor is like, you come here. So I think it was a little bit of that. But like my first, the great story with the midterm was, I had like crammed for it the day before, and I think it was like at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Yeah, that's when our class was, and I like just like stayed up and like napped like intermittently. Anyway, ended up doing great. I took like extra paper. Like Diane was at the front of the class, and I was like, I need more paper, and she was like, what is happening? Because we're like essay style. But yeah, and I think it was like the last person to leave the exam room. It was, oh my gosh,
you're so like committed.
I was that kid. Yeah, I was just like, got it. So anyway, it was a good time. I got like an A- on the exam, and I went to see her because she was like, I'm having like office hours for people, you know, especially like anyone can come talk to me about the midterm, but like I think the average was so low.
Yeah, well, that was like the first, not like exam. I guess it was kind of a test/exam. That was like the first thing that we did as first years. That was like a serious grade. It wasn't like a studio grade or something like that. So I remember, and plus the like actual exam was super different than like I think what you would expect, like in high school or something. It was literally three like questions that were open-ended. 4 or 3? I don't remember.
No, it was like 4 like argumentative essays. You had to do like a building ID. So if you didn't, it was like I think she always did like pairs. And they should give you like a pair of buildings, and you had to identify. And you would like
compare them,
Or you write something,
Yeah, but it was like people got such low scores because like it was literally nothing. It was just graded on just how you wrote. So I guess that was like hard for some people. It was hard for me. I don't remember what I got, but it wasn't an A for sure. Not on that first one.
Well, part of it was like if you got the building ID wrong, you were like, that was it.
Yeah, you were kind of screwed for like a quarter of the test, for 25% of that.
So. Yeah, so it's 4 questions. So even if you bombed one, that's like a C.
Yeah.
So
I know a lot of people like failed that class because of that one midterm.
Yeah. It was, and there were only like 2 or 3, like we didn't have assignments or anything. We just had like 2 or 3 tests, and
the majority of the grade overall was just based on those exams.
Yeah.
But you enjoyed it, and you did well on it, so
yeah, it was really funny because I was concerned that I was going to do poorly, and I was like, oh, okay, like A-, and then she like showed the chart, and I was like, oh, maybe I should just be happy with this. But I went to see her anyway because I was concerned that I was going to be like, I can't keep pulling the like last minute cram for this stuff because it's a lot of material. Or I was more concerned, I think I was like, the whole point is to like know, right? Because like criticism is such a big part of like if you study history and stuff, like you should be able to look at a building or like go to a town and sort of comment on like where it's coming from. And so I was like, if I keep cramming things at the last minute, I'm not going to retain anything. And I was trying to talk to her about like, how am I supposed to actually learn this in a way that I apply it? So I went to see her after the exam, and she's probably expecting that I'd like performed a certain way. And she was like, remind me again what you got on the test. And I said, I got an A-, like super like deadpan. I was like very serious, and she cracked up. She fully lost it. She was like, can just go home.
What are you concerned about?
Yeah. But she appreciated where I was coming from, but she thought that was so funny that I was like genuinely sort of like nervous about retaining.
I mean, it's a genuine concern. I don't even know if I've retained as much as I would have wanted to.
Well, I'm more concerned now that I'm a minor because I definitely I can't like look at a building, even a famous one sometimes, and be like, aha, that's the year, you know?
No, I definitely kind of like, I can't retain those numbers.
Yeah. The other day I was on a call with some people, and like we had to like make things. It was for my like training for work. And somebody was commenting on like, oh, that's so Bauhaus. And I was like, oh no. So yeah, I mean, it was, so it just kind of started like that. And I talked to her pretty early on about doing a minor. So I think it was our sophomore year when I was like, I think I want to do this. And so she said, well, like, she wasn't worried because it's, you know, it's 7 classes. So it's 4 more classes, which comes out to be a lot because we have so many requirements up until 3rd year.
Yeah,
anyway.
I think the architectural history minor is like one of the hardest minors to get in architecture, not in like CMU.
Yeah.
Because there's so many classes and there's so few opportunities to take them. And we have so many requirements in like the first 3 years.
Yeah. And, you know, you have to take like a 9 unit, and it is a lot of work because like all the higher level arch history courses are all like essay based. So you'll have like 3 essays in a span of a semester. Sometimes you have just the one final essay, and that's your whole grade. And
which is crazy.
It's wild because you're supposed to work on it throughout the year, and then you don't. And then you have like 2 days, and then you have that much time to like pass or fail the class. And, you know, since we're here now, we're on the other side. I'm not gonna lie, that was like the 2 days leading up to graduation. I was like, oh my god.
I remember.
I was like, am I gonna get this? And the same thing happened for my writing class. I was like, am I gonna get these minors or not? What is going on? Yeah. So it was a wild ride. Writing was also similar. Like I just I used to write a bit in high school, but like my curriculum or like whatever, but the system that I like went to school in wasn't like very like intense in terms of its English and writing. Like we had a very like outdated syllabus. We never read like anyone really big. Like I think the most famous person we studied was, I mean, we did like extracts from Pride and Prejudice and from Julius Caesar, like little, but like, you know how you read like plays in high school.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know, for some reason every like English class I had, that was like the one semester that professor or teacher decided not to like teach like a significant
Really?
writing. Like I think we were supposed to read Romeo and Juliet or whatever in 7th grade, but then that semester my teacher was like, no, we're not gonna read Romeo and Juliet this time. We're gonna read like another, I don't remember what Shakespeare one we read. So I kind of missed out on a lot of the big ones. It was really coincidental, but
yeah, it's funny because like, you know, I have this, I don't know, like people are always like, or in our friend circle they're like, oh yeah, you're like one of the English ones, or like you read a lot, and then I'm like,
the English one.
But like we never did the big ones in like I have not read so many classics that people end up reading like in school because of like classwork, and I just have to keep reminding myself like I still gotta go back and read like XYZ. I still haven't read 1984. I mean, I guess we're like sort of living it out.
Oh,
but
I haven't read it either. Don't
but
worry.
Like yeah, so I always felt like I was missing something because I was like I had some sort of like ability for sure, but then I also like didn't feel that great about it because I was like, well, like we're, you know, it's not like we're very challenged a lot like in terms of language. So I started writing for this this is terrible. I was writing for this like online like zine magazine thing that was like called The Odyssey. No, after coming here, like freshman year, I saw like a post, and I knew who the editor was. Like I knew who he was. I wasn't like directly friends with him, but this person posted like, hey, I'm about to be like editor, we're starting a new chapter. Ooh, sorry. And so we're looking for writers. So I like wrote and I joined, I did an interview, and oh my gosh, it was like my first snow. It was my first winter because it was freshman year, and I was running late to the interview because it was like in the morning on Saturday, and I was like probably exhausted from some deadline. Yeah. And so I washed my hair, right? Because I'm like supposed to be presentable.
Yeah. Did your hair freeze while you were walking?
My hair froze.
Oh my god. That's funny.
I could hear it like freezing, and I got there and I'm like, I'm sorry I look so alarmed, but like I think my hair froze on the way over. Yeah, it's a funny story. Anyway, it was a really good experience, and then towards the end of the semester I was like, this is sort of like awful though because we just write clickbaity articles, right? It was like you had to like share it, and
that you even like wrote for the Odyssey.
Like I tried a lot the first few ones, and then at some point like you had to put out an article every week, and then if you were late, like the editor, like the big editor would like text you on GroupMe, and I was like, my gosh, I'm trying to pass this class, like leave me alone. And it was like it almost like I thought that like if I put in bad writing, like it should get rejected, right? Like that's part of the process. and then it wouldn't. And I was just like, I don't want to just put everything every draft I submit on Sunday out there, because then I have like my name associated with it.
That's true.
So then I got coffee with this editor, like the local one, the friend. And I was like, listen, I really appreciate you, but like, is there any way like you can give me more like intense feedback? Just like tell me when something is crappy, because this process doesn't allow for it. And he was like, oh, I fully agree with you, and that's why I'm quitting.
Oh.
So he was just gonna stop doing it, and I was like, okay, I have no more reason to stay, because I was like,
That's
I knew that
so funny, because you
like,
knew him, yeah.
And he was like good, like he helped me like be better with my writing, but like the system itself was. So then, you know, like I was thinking of other ways to do it, and then he recommended a specific like class and a professor, and then I did like a little bit of like, I interned for like the architecture communications department, like writing about the lecture series. So I ended up like meeting this professor, and then he was like, oh, you should like minor if you're like really into it. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I did the minor. And honestly, here we are. I have a teacher from the English department. They were so nice. Like the advisor in that department she was so welcoming. She was like, just because you're like doing a minor doesn't mean you're any less part of the department. So
that's so cute. I wish all departments did that.
Well, they sent us a care package after graduation.
I remember you said.
Yeah.
Wow. School of Architecture. Come on.
But yeah, that was a really long way to tell you my stories. But tell me yours. How did you end up doing a minor in HCI? And also, while telling the story, is it true that you have to like get accepted? Like that's a thing, right?
Yeah, you have to. So for Carnegie Mellon, at least, there's like HCI, the Human Computer Interaction like department, is not like a true department. It's like a subsection of the computer science department. If that makes sense.
Oh, gotcha.
So you can't actually come into Carnegie Mellon like with the intention of getting a major or minor in HCI. Like CMU, you have to apply to be in the major or the minor, and I think there's like a submission deadline, and I don't remember like if you have to be a certain year or something like that, but you have to be accepted. So yeah, that is correct. And they like take into account like your GPA and like what classes you've already taken.
Oh wow.
So it's like kind of selective. Anyways, yeah, how I got into it was like kind of accidental. It was my summer after my freshman year, so in between my freshman and sophomore year. Okay. I was at home because I didn't have like a summer internship, so I came home to my hometown, and I like worked at an ice cream shop and blah blah blah. We can talk about that in another episode.
Didn't you sprain your wrist?
I did. I sprained my wrist scooping ice cream too hard, my right hand, because it was like a 7-hour shift on July 4th and whatever. But yeah, I was working at home that summer, and I had a friend from my dorm who was interning in San Francisco at like this startup, and he's colorblind, for one, and he's like a computer science major. He did not know how to design. I think a lot of like software engineers don't really understand the concept of like visual design. So I mean, that's like no shade to them, but like that's accurate. So he asked me my opinion on like color scheme, and then that grew to like him asking me opinions on like layout of this project he was doing, and then that escalated pretty quickly into like me doing contract work for that company. Yeah, over the summer. I was way underpaid, but obviously like I didn't have any experience. Like it was $200 for the entire summer or something like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so what I did was like I didn't code anything, but I worked with my friend to like make the visual design, and then he would like kind of replicate it on the software side, on the front end side. So like we did some back and forth and design iteration and stuff like that. So yeah, that's like how it started. And then they liked me, the company. So then in the fall of my second year, they like asked me for some like small contract work.
Oh, cool.
I think over winter break, they said, oh, we have a lot of work over like the next summer if you're interested in like a design internship or like a front end development internship. And I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll take it. And yeah, that's like my story. So like I randomly helped out a friend, and then that like totally escalated over the course of the year to like a full-blown front-end development internship, which is like
That's so
wild.
cool.
Yeah.
In SF too.
And yeah, in San Francisco. So, and then like after that, I like continued to do some small projects. Like I did some hackathons with some friends of mine. Yeah. So now I've had 3 internships in like UI UX or front end or whatever you want to call it, and still working on that now. So
That's very cool.
yeah.
And I don't know if it's like not obvious from this conversation, but you also do all the like graphics and like the cool things for our podcast.
Oh yeah, I do all the graphics and stuff. It's like kind of interesting like having this skill because I never realized this until like I started applying for like internships. Not right now, but like last summer. But like my skill set is like really weirdly unique. It's interesting because like these software companies are like, "Oh, you can implement a design," which is great. Like a lot of people, like a lot of engineers can do that, but you can also design it to look amazing or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can also like iterate upon it and like work with the engineers to like do whatever. So it's
Like
it's
improve
like
it.
it's like a really, I never realized how unique of a skill that is to be able to do both sides, because I think like a lot of like startups have like one front end engineer who who builds like what you see on a web page, and then they have like a designer or like a contract designer that designs what it looks like, but they don't have someone that does both. So that's like a
Yeah.
really like useful and valuable skill apparently. So.
Like the combination. Yeah. I'm assuming that if you know like what it takes to make something happen on a web page, and you also have a vision for like what you want it to look like, you can sort of explore like possibilities in the, you know, codey part of it that you wouldn't really know existed if you like knew only the design part. It's kind of like what they tell you about architecture too, in a way, because like most of our focus is usually on the design and like what it's supposed to look like, and less of what it takes to get it to look like
to
that.
make it,
Yeah, but then also if you have like a really, I guess like the comparison is like, you know, like a structural system versus like the whole like building itself. If you don't have to be the one like designing the system, but if you have an idea of like what the possibilities of the system are, you can sometimes like push back on like the usual ways people use them and say, well, actually, I know that, you know, if you do this, it'll work. So I need you to give me like a more creative solution. Like you can tell your engineer that. So that's super cool. Thank you.
I love it.
Analogies, you know, I did minor in writing. So.
Yeah. But I definitely figured out that I was doing the minor early enough. So like back to your like question about applying to it, I applied to it in my sophomore year right before my internship, and I got accepted, quote unquote, because I had taken like enough classes during that same school year. And so like I actually took my time with this like pretty slowly. I think with the HCI department, a lot of people do the additional major, so they like double major in like design and HCI, or like CS and HCI, or even like architecture and HCI. But like I had a lot of other things going on, like student leadership stuff, so like I chose to take it slow and like do just the minor. And honestly, even though I don't get like that little like text in my diploma, I think it was worth it because I got to do a lot of other stuff other than just like, you know,
the major
schoolwork.
Sure. Yeah, no, sometimes when, I don't know, you must have had this moment too, since I guess like a lot of people do the double major. I also had you can't major in architecture history in our department, so it didn't come up there. But when I was doing writing, I was like, oh, I'm having a good time. Like, I'm really enjoying this. I wonder what it would take to do like the additional major. And part of it was that like I was way late in my, you know, it was like my 4th year, and it would have been like wildly impossible or like hugely demanding to do the second major. But I did have a moment of like, oh, I really wish like it was possible to make it happen. But then you realize like why it's a minor and like not a major, because it's there's so many more classes to
So many
finish the
more
major
prerequisites,
sometimes.
and then so much more like
Yeah.
writing, and some of them you have to do like a capstone and like that kind of stuff. And yeah,
Right.
it gets a little too much for me, at least. I can understand why people do it, but
No,
it
it's
wasn't for
more
me.
involvement.
Yeah.
But like you said, like you do make a choice. Like it's kind of like if you double majored, then maybe you like had to cut back on leadership or I don't know, like other things.
Yeah.
So there's definitely like a trade-off, and I guess the nice thing about minors is that like you can do more than one if you are able to like make it work. So you sort of like know, maybe you know less about the individual like thing, but you know more than like someone who did just the major, you know.
Yeah. It makes you like, I think I say this a lot for like interviews or like when someone asks me, but like I think like having a minor in something like related to your major, which is in my case it's kind of related like design wise, it makes you super interdisciplinary. I guess it is for you too, because some of architecture is like related to like stories and like being able to relate something into words and presenting. But yeah, like being super interdisciplinary in your like primary field, I think makes you stand out a lot.
I think so. I agree. I mean, part of it is like, you know, it's one of those things that sort of sets you apart from the crowd a little bit. Like, just the numbers are like, there are less people with minors or whatever. And like, if you can make it, like, people always, like, in my case, they really sort of appreciate the whole, like, how is writing relevant or whatever argument that's related to storytelling, like you were saying. You know, narrative is really important and things like that. I mean, and it's true. And, you know, most architects apparently are like notoriously bad at writing. So the like few in history that were ever able to like write well, like wrote books and became really famous. Like, you know, people
That'll
always
be
say
you
that
one
about
day.
like,
You never know.
oh, I don't know. I mean, some people have I don't want to like name famous people, so because I don't want to sound like I'm like comparing myself to whoever, because I'm not. But like there are these stories about, you know, like some architect who was like young and like the stage that we're at, and like the economy was terrible or they weren't getting a job, and they like wrote a book because they had like nothing going for them, and then they just like became a success.
Well,
Ever
that's like
since quarantine.
that's a really common like I don't know what the word, like trope, I guess, or like thing that happens is when I guess like when you don't have anything to do, you like write. I'm talking about like you as in like an architect. Like people write manifestos and stuff when there's like something bad going on in the world, or like I'm sure like 5 years from now a bunch of manifestos will come out regarding like the current situation, or like they probably already have come
5 years
out,
from
honestly.
they've come out.
Yeah,
they're everywhere.
Yeah,
there's manifestos left, right, and center.
Yeah.
But it's harder than it sounds too. Like part of me is like, yeah, okay, I'll like write my book, I'll become famous, like I'll live off of royalties for the rest of my life. Yeah. So
something to look forward to.
Maybe. But yeah, I also had a couple professors or advisors be like, yeah, like it's not the most, I mean, it's like a good and like relatively unique combination of skills to have, so like don't like be afraid to market it and stuff. So I think that's always nice.
Yeah. Well, we were gonna mention one last thing before we like end the episode, is like what thing did you learn from your minor that's like super applicable, since this set of skills like this is pretty unique. What's yours?
Oh man. I guess like the one thing that they taught us, like they really hammered into all the students, was know your audience. So like from the intro class to the like highest level class I took, it was always audience analysis is really important, like understanding the value system of the group that you're trying to connect with, you know, things like that. So I think that really is like key. Is if it's not even just about like convincing other people, but just understanding like why certain arguments or certain like opinions or points of view like gain momentum. If you look at the people that are like in the audience, things start to make a lot of sense. You can sort of like reverse engineer a convincing like argument if you know your audience.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. We actually talked about this like in this like architecture class that I audited, and then I had to drop it, whatever. But there was you know Vivian, obviously. Like everybody knows Vivian Lofness, but you know, we like went to school where she teaches. But she has this really great class that like she teaches you how to like convert or talk about the like environmental benefits of green building to like people who are mostly driven by like profit, so like venture capitalists or C-suite level people. Like if
basically,
they're
like how to
ultimately
sell
driven
architecture to the right
yeah
people.
And that's like all about, it's like the same things they teach you in professional writing classes is, well, you have this thing and you have to convince somebody else that it's valuable. So one option is to like yell it at them all the time, which is not really gonna work, and the other option is to like distill their value system, like make the list of this is what's most important to this person, and then like spin it. And it was like life-changing for me, and I just my
That's
eyes
really
were
cool.
open. I was like,
that's so
right?
related to like everything that you've been doing in like a professional writing minor, or just like the idea of knowing your audience. Like I think that's really relatable.
Yeah It's super exciting, and it makes you like, I think it makes you more empathetic because you have to understand another person's point of view.
Well, that's like kind of related to like HCI. Like I guess that would be my like thing that I would take away from HCI is like knowing or being empathetic to another person's experience and whatever it is they're experiencing. Like in HCI, obviously it's like some form of computers, but like just designing experiences as if you are the experiencer, I think is like a really great skill to have. So like when I like answer this question in interviews, like oh, how does like your minor or like how does HCI relate to like what you've been doing, or like how does your past internships relate, I always say that like HCI helped me like learn how to design experiences like virtually, like but it's like the things that I learned are just another tool to like design experiences. It's not necessarily a different workflow, which I think is like really important to know. And especially if you're like interested in something like HCI or designing like user interfaces, I think it's like it's important to realize that it's not like a completely different playing field. Like it's kind of related to architecture if you're in that profession.
Right. And even if not, I think it's, you know, it's so important to like have that concept of what are we like presenting to other people, and like how do they perceive or process like what we put out. I think that is, it doesn't mean like you should always be designing for like the benefit of other people, but just even understanding that, I think that's been very helpful.
Yeah. So. And I think a lot of like architecture firms are like slowly moving towards that too. Towards like accepting that idea. Maybe like less professional, or maybe less traditional ones aren't, but a lot of like forward thinking ones are. So I'm glad to see that happening. Yeah. And I think it's really funny that you, not like funny as in like, oh haha, like they're terrible, but you mentioned how, you know, many people like with an engineering background like don't have the best sense of like how to make like design work. But I feel like, you know, that's such an important thing. I had a friend who like has like a, you know, CS background, and he was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know how to like make this happen. And I was like, well, that's good, because if you knew how to like lay out your house, I wouldn't have like, there would be no reason for me to do what I'm doing. Exactly.
So that's like the biggest compliment. So to anybody out there who's like not in the design profession, please openly say that you can't do it, because that only validates like designers. Not that designers are looking for validation, but it's like a good thing to say.
It validates our existence sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of times. Like there's, you know, like when people are like, oh yeah, like this is hard to do, or no, I can't do this. Like nobody should be expected to like design as a human skill. It's a special skill. You have to go to school for it.
You can't have it.
No. I mean, obviously people have a knack, people have good eyes, etc. But, you know, as people who've like gone to school for 5 years, I feel like we're a little more in the camp of like, you have to spend a lot of time learning how to do this.
It's not that easy.
Yeah. Of course, I don't mean to say that like like skills or resources or should be like cut off from people. But the point is, I love hearing from like non-designers that they think what we do is really difficult, because I agree.
I agree too. I agree.
Well, on that note,
yeah.
I think I learned a lot about like computery stuff today.
Oh, exciting!
So
I didn't know that you like wrote for like a thing in freshman year. Well, I guess I didn't really know you that well in freshman year. We became more friends sophomore year.
Advertise it. Like, if you go far back enough in my Facebook, you'll find it, because it was required to share. And my dad has all of them printed and put in a binder.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Oh,
I appreciate it, but it's like, I really don't like some of those articles. And he insists they're like witty, and I'm like, Dad!
Dad, no.
One of them is like, you know those like really terrible articles that are like 10 things to do this, and it's like all GIFs?
Like those like BuzzFeed-esque articles. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It just, one of them was about our like propinquity thing. It was like related.
Oh gosh.
But some of them were like deep and nice, but some of them were like worse than BuzzFeed. So I'm glad that's behind me. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
all right.
In that case, thank you guys for listening, or like, I don't even know if you made it this far. Maybe some people like to hear about our minors, maybe some people don't. But if you can, subscribe, give us a rating or a thumbs up or whatever it is on whatever platform you're on. We're pretty much on all the podcast platforms now. So that's a plus. Tell your friends to check us out. Yeah.
And tell us what you think. We'll be back next week with the last episode in this series, which is New Grads. Now what?
That's the series, not the episode.
That's the series. That's not. Yeah. We have lots of levels. There's the show, there's the series, then there's the episode, and really putting that writing minor to use with all the titles and all that fun stuff. Anyway, we have some cool things coming up. Stay tuned, and in the meantime, learn new things and expand your working knowledge.
All right.
It's a bit of a mouthful, that catchphrase. Okay. Bye.
Bye.